This podcast is brought to you by Noah. That's right, in honor of this episode's release date falling on his birthday, today's episode is sponsored by our very own bigglest brother. It's impossible to sum up just how weirdly, marvelously, multifacetedly awesome Noah is. Writing an adequate advertisement for him feels like trying to draw a four-dimensional hypersphere on two-dimensional paper. I could focus on how he spent years working in various Memphis emergency rooms, but what about his side hustle as a 3D graphics designer, or as he and I like to call it, as a digital sculptor? Sure, I could revel in how he can strike up a genuinely enjoyable conversation with nearly anyone, but I might forget to mention his landmark achievements, like his EMT certification and black belt in Taekwondo. That's right, he's not just a jinja, he's a ninja. In the end, though, I think the most complete and honest endorsement I can give Noah is to say that he's the best older brother that I can imagine having. Not only to Andrew and me, but to everyone he meets. Whether Noah realizes it or not, he's always looking out for people in need of a little help, lifting me and the rest of the world out of our dreariest gray day funks, and showing everyone 10 times the patience they deserve. When I grow up, I want to be like him. I always have, and I always will. And the beautiful thing is, as his little brother, he'll always be just a few years more grown up than me, always pulling me on towards my better self. Normally, at this point in the ad, I'd say something along the lines of, if you need a big brother, get a Noah today. But sorry everyone, this Noah's taken. I'd like to keep him for myself, thanks. So here's to you, Noah. From one older brother to another, you're beyond the best of us, and an inspiration to us all. Thank you, and I love you. Really. Welcome to Little, Middle, and Biggle. I'm your middle brother, Joshua.
I'm your little brother, Andrew.
We'll try that again.
I'm not sure what just happened in my mouth just now. That's what she said.
Welcome to Little, Middle, and Biggle. I'm your middle brother, Joshua.
I'm your little brother, Andrew. And I'm your biggle brother, Noah.
And we are the ones who will try our best to answer the little, middle, and biggle questions we all have in life today. We are back to our original sized questions, as according to our size in the family. That was a horrible way to phrase that. But Andrew, that means that you get to start us off with the little question.
Yes! My favorite question to ask. So, I am an odd bird, and that I actually enjoy a lot of the books that I've been reading for English class this year. So I wanted to ask you guys what your favorite book that you had to read in school was. Or if you don't have one that you actually enjoyed, say one that you think has a good meaning to it. My favorite is almost definitely Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. It's about, and Josh was making gagging noises at this, but it's about, this dude, he's white, he goes into the Congo, and he sees that the other white people are being really oppressive and mean to the black people, and it's a great commentary on humans and what they do for power, and colonization and stuff. What about you guys?
Wow, you should put that on Spark Notes.
I should.
The most concise and accurate and thorough summary of Heart of Darkness I've ever heard. So, my answer could come in two forms. One would be the book that I think, or that I had to read, that I think was most impactful on me and changed my worldview the most. The other would be the one that I actually enjoyed reading the most.
Mm-hmm.
Which one are you asking about?
I don't know, it was the same book for me. How about that you would recommend the most?
Okay. Oh, well, see, then that also goes both ways. So I'll just give both. So for me, my most enjoyed one was definitely A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Maybe it was just because it was the first Dickens book I ever read, and there's something special about that.
No, there's not.
Do you not like Charles Dickens?
No, I hate Charles Dickens so much.
I love Charles Dickens. Oh my gosh. He's like the original tongue-in-cheek humor guy.
There's a reason he has Dick in his name.
Wow.
The level of maturity just dropped about 10 grade levels. Thanks, Andrew.
You're welcome. I am 10 grade levels below Noah.
Are you serious?
Well, 9.
Wow. Anyway, so my...
Wait, no, I'm not.
I'm too tired to do the
Yes,
math.
I am. Because he went into 9th grade when I went into 5th grade. I mean, kindergarten.
So that means that, Noah, you would be in 21st grade right now.
Wow. That's
yep.
pretty crazy.
Okay, so most impactful book for me would be All Quiet on the Western Front.
Ooh,
which, yeah, I know. It was the one that made me think, like, wow, I should just be a nicer human. Because there are terrible things in this world, and they will happen in ways that we can never even begin to imagine. And the most important way I can spend my life is just by trying to mitigate the amount I contribute to that and doing all that I can to undo some of it.
Yeah, that's very much kind of what I should say when I talk about Heart of Darkness. That's exactly how I feel. All Quiet on the Western Front is the World War I one, right?
Yes.
I've been wanting to read that too. We didn't actually have to read it for class. Anyways, Noah, your turn. If you were done, Joshua.
Yeah, sure. I was just ruminating on the sadness of life. As always.
Lovely.
Go for it, Noah.
I mean, this is a terrible one for me to answer because I read probably about 20% of all the books that I was supposed to read in, K through 12. But
I feel like you can extend it to college if you don't have a good answer from high school.
So wait, does that mean you read 20% of each book, or you only read 20% of the total books?
Yes.
So you read 20% of 20% of the books.
That's
so
probably...
all in all, you read about 4% of the total pages.
No, it was a little bit more than that. It's probably more like 20% of them I actually read all the way through, and then of the rest, maybe 20% was actually read. Like the Charles Dickens books, definitely never read all the way through those.
You guys, you are missing out on like the premier 19th century author of English literature.
I mean, I can't say anything because I've not ever actually read all the way through a Charles Dickens
That
book.
sound I just made is what my brain does whenever I hear Charles Dickens.
You hear Charles Dickens?
When I hear the name Charles Dickens.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like Charles Dickens' voice from beyond the grave.
Well, I've heard that a couple times too.
Moving on, Noah.
But actually, what was it, like, the most impactful book or favorite book?
See, I had to answer both because for Andrew it was one and the same, and then he said, which would you recommend? And, I would recommend both the most impactful and most enjoyable book, so...
Yeah, that's fair. So, probably of all the really standard ones, Fahrenheit 451 was pretty good. One I read all the way through, which helped. But it was it felt like a book that had some good, insightfulness and meaning and everything, but it was still cool to read. Like it didn't feel like a chore to read as much, which is much more of an opinion than a actual factor in the book itself. But then the other one that comes to mind is, and I don't remember the full name of it, but it's the one about Henrietta Lacks.
The Immortal Life of Henrietta
Lacks.
Lacks.
Yeah.
I read the first 2 chapters of it last year, but never read the whole book.
Nice.
I never read any of it. That was the one that you read before going to TCU, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, that totally was. That was the summer reading before college.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a cool book. It was a completely different one. It was much less, big society ideas and stuff, and more just a specific case and then some bigger contextual stuff about that. But it was really cool. So I think for anyone that would ever be interested in medicine or research, Henrietta Lacks is a really great book to read, just because of the impact that it has on like the way that you see where research comes from and like who's involved in it and where it used to be like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and on the medical field. And I don't know, it's got some interesting stuff you learn about it. Also, HeLa cells are really cool, and it talks a lot about those.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate hearing your opinion. Both of you. But I've got to change my answer. So I totally forgot about Tuesdays with Maury. Tuesdays with Maury.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I take it back. That's my standard one.
Primo.
Yep. 100% agree.
It's pretty dang good. Doesn't change my answer, but it's probably like a close second or third.
It's okay. You don't think Charles Dickens is worth reading either. So anyway, well, I'll go ahead and jump us into the middle question. So I was thinking about, I have like 10 middle questions that I have lined up. And then this one came to me in the shower this morning. I still don't really have a good answer for it, but I'm super interested to hear what you guys think. So, in the spirit of littlemiddlebiggle, if you guys could change your birth position in the family, would you? And what would you change it to? And why?
So when you said birth position, I was thinking like the position both I and Mom were in as I was being birthed.
Oh my god.
Thought you were gonna be like, I would choose my feet going first.
Yeah, you would choose to be a breech baby?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. No, that's not what I meant at all, but thanks for that image of Mom giving birth to me.
You are welcome.
So I know that my answer is no, I would not change my birth position. I'm still trying to I'm having a hard time trying to figure out why, but I will try and just let the thoughts flow forth from my esophagus or my pharynx. Larynx. Gosh, I'm going to be a doctor someday. So, I think that I would not change it because it is nice to be... So there's the stereotype of middle children being the forgotten children, or this kind of trope. And I do see the middle children as getting a little bit less focus put on them, if not less attention, just because there isn't the specific title of you are the oldest or you are the youngest, both of which have very clear images surrounding them. Like the oldest is supposed to be the big leader of the group, and the youngest is supposed to be just kind of the one who gets, babied and or has the most fun. Not that that's true in our case or anything,
and
or
has
untrue.
An awesome rainbow robe, and then his brothers get jealous, and then he gets thrown in a pit with lions.
Nice biblical reference.
Thank you.
You really snuck that in there. That was subtle. So I think that not having that clear-cut image surrounding your position in the family, or my position in the family, has been really helpful. And also, it kind of puts me in the position to be kind of support crew for you guys, which I really enjoy. And I feel like I get to take the best from your guys' experiences as the oldest and the youngest. The oldest being sort of the guinea pig, and the youngest being the one who maybe has had things a little bit easier for them. Just like, Andrew, you could say stupid and not get chastised for it. Like,
I could
10
say
years
stupid.
before I could.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
There were definitely a couple times I said stupid and I was chastised, but by the time I was probably like 7 years old, stupid was no longer a bad word.
Wow. I distinctly remember being in 3rd grade and JT Hassel saying something about stupid. Oh yeah, okay. He was saying, so have you heard the Princess and the Pea? Well, there's this really stupid version called The Princess and the Bowling Ball. And I was just like, you said stupid.
He said stupid.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like as the middle child, I get to take the best of your guys' experiences and also just kind of be a little bit freer, have a little bit less focus on me, not just from mom and dad, but just from all relatives to be any certain thing. And I can just kind of explore myself, figure out who I am a little more freely, if that makes any sense. I don't know if you guys see it that way, but perceptively, that's how it feels.
You know, what you said about figuring yourself out, I feel like our parents are so supportive and lax. I never have really felt like they're saying, this is what you have to be, you know? I don't know. I don't feel like my birth position has affected that.
Okay.
Not that your reasoning is not valid.
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't say this before Noah goes, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I do feel like there was, and I bet that this is the same way in any multiple child family, but I feel like with the first child, there's always this sort of pressure that the parents feel and then project of, we've really got to make sure this kid has every single possibility to succeed, every single opportunity to succeed, and that they take it and they run with it because, dang it, we're going to do this right.
Yeah. Here, actually, Noah, I'll let you answer before I say anything else.
I think, well, just along those lines, I think none of us are parents, but it seems from an outside perspective like there's this kind of additional anxiety with the first child, that like it's almost like a joke, like with the first kid, everyone talks about being super duper careful, and by the last one they're like, yeah, go have fun, do whatever, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
babies are bouncy. but yeah, I think it's almost more just like I don't want to just say an anxiety thing, because that sounds like I feel like that simplifies it too much. But like the first one's always kind of the guinea pig, right? And so they don't know what they're doing, and so by definition, there's a little bit more worry there. Like, oh man, we got to make sure and do this right. And then, by the time Andrew comes around, they're like, he's got this figured out. It's fine.
So instead of anxiety, would you maybe say just like caution?
Caution's a good word. Yes.
Okay.
I would say there is a touch of anxiety that was present there, but there's definitely like much more caution. Like, perfect example of the caution, you were talking about stupid being a bad word whenever you and I were little, and then with Andrew, it's like not a big deal. Like, Andrew makes some very risque jokes sometimes.
Yeah,
it's true.
So, but or like, whenever, I know we've talked about this before, but whenever we were playing Donkey Kong 64, and there was like the coconut gun.
Yeah.
And Dad was really worried. He's like, "Wait, does it look like a real gun? Like, what are you shooting?" And at that same age, Andrew was playing Warhawk with us, like day in and day out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which is not bad. I mean, I don't blame them for being more cautious at first, and I don't blame them for being like, okay, this is not that big of a deal with Andrew.
Yeah. Sucks for you guys. Yeah, I would not change my birth position. We have all won the birth lottery, but I feel like I've won the birth lottery extensively more than you guys, just in the opportunities my childhood has afforded, especially like being able to see, okay, these people are pretty identical to me and they're going in front of me. I get to see how I will react in certain situations without actually being in those situations. Yeah.
I agree with that. I can definitely see that. I think that one thing that I would really have a hard time with being the older child, especially with the college experience that I did have, is just if I'd gone away to college and had the experience that I did without having had Noah go before me and show that things can be tough, but you can survive and you can make the most of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have done as well as I did. emotionally speaking. Not like, I'm not saying like, I don't know if I would have gotten as good grades as I did or anything. I mean, like,
Yeah, because I mean, you got like straight A's, but
But anyway, so Noah, what do you think? Would you change your birth position?
no, I think. I mean, I think I guess you could say pros and cons to any of them, and we, like Andrew said, we did kind of luck out regardless. But, but no, I think it's been kind of fun. I like, just I like the idea of like forging off into the unknown, and and I guess there's a little bit of that with being the oldest child. So
For sure.
it's been kind of fun. I don't know. I like the idea. I think it's fun.
Well, cool. Thanks for
Yeah.
taking that burden upon yourself for us.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't know. I think this is what I'd rather be. Maybe it's weird. Maybe like part of it's just that we each were born into these particular positions, and so we just are like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd rather do this. Glad Andrew would rather be the little child, and that you'd rather be the middle child. That worked out really well, considering that is what we are.
Yeah, seriously.
I feel like if there were more than 3 of us, well, maybe if there were like 5 or more brothers/sisters, we would all, not all, but some of us would definitely want to switch positions.
Yeah, well, I think that ship's kind of sailed for Mom and Dad.
You're
not
probably
to,
right.
Not to speak for them or anything, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something else I was thinking about that, and now I can't remember what it was. Oh, okay. So, Joshua, you were talking about, like, I remember, whenever, like, we did Taekwondo, like, you were in that for a little while,
Unfortunately.
and then you kind of like, you just like, yeah, then suddenly like you didn't seem as interested, and I remember, either Mom or Dad being like, maybe. Part of the reason that Joshua kind of wanted to at first was just because he thought it was cool that his brother was doing it, and so he wanted to be a part of it. And I wondered if there were other things like that, and Andrew, if you felt that way about either of us. And then also to randomly throw in there that, like, even though I didn't really have that whenever we were little, because I was always like the big one, now that you guys are actually doing cool stuff that is like on your own and that no one else has done before you. I don't know, that's a weird way to put that. Now that you guys are doing, like, having your own lives and doing all sorts of neat things that no one could have expected, it makes me like want to go and do things. Like, Joshua, you having all these creative outlets makes me want to be like, I should have more creative outlets. And Andrew, like, you learning how to fly planes, like, wow, that would be a really cool thing to do, because like, my brother's doing that, and I want to be cool like them.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
I'm flattered to hear that, because
Me
honestly,
too.
I feel like the majority of the reason why I am as creative as I am is because I've had your crazy creative output forever on my horizons. I definitely would not have tried out rock climbing if it were not for you, ever.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
I also don't know if I ever would have gotten, this might be weird to think about, but as physically active if it were not for you, because the time that I really started to get into exercise was when you and I, and Andrew to a lesser extent, and Mom and Dad to a lesser extent, did CrossFit that summer. And
yeah.
I think that you doing it along with me is the only reason why I went more than once or twice. So if there had not been that catalyst, I don't know if I ever would have really continued with exercise. And I'm sure that there are tons and tons and tons and tons of other things that I just cannot think of off the top of my head. So I will let...
Oh, well, yeah, for all of us.
So I will let Andrew jump in for his answer.
Yeah, I think if I could count the amount of times I've seen you guys doing something and then been like, yeah, I want to do that, it would be more times than the
Wow.
It would be a lot of times.
I can just hear the balloon of your brain going.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. I was thinking like nickels, dimes. It could stretch from here to the moon and back. That doesn't really make sense. Yeah. It would be a lot of times. Okay, like Noah.
So many times.
You going to TCU? I was like, yeah, I'm going to TCU. And then you going to Hendrix? I was like, yeah, I'm going to Hendrix. And then Josh would go to Hendrix, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to Hendrix. And then, like, playing Little Big Planet, I remember not really enjoying that at first until I saw you guys enjoying it and being creative in it. Gosh, there are tons of other things. Tennis I wanted to pick up because Noah played tennis. Taekwondo was more of a mom and dad thing, though. Mom and dad saying, hey, this would be fun. I definitely played piano for a lot longer than I really wanted to because I saw Joshua playing piano. And I saw Joshua playing his awesome, long, pretty songs. And I was like, I want to play long, pretty songs. And there I was playing like chopsticks. But same with cello and Noah. All sorts of times.
Cool. Andrew, you have made me definitely want to get back into choir in some capacity. I don't know if that's ever going to happen just feasibly, but whenever I see you perform with Freedom Singers, I'm always like, man, I so miss that. That was such a cool thing that I did, and I did never really even appreciate it. And I would so love to be able to, like, sing and be in a group and be cool about it like Andrew, instead of just kind of being there as a rote role like I was.
Do medical schools have choirs?
There are, like, clubs.
You should start, like, a medical school glee club.
Oh, gosh. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, it does.
I'm sure you could definitely find people who are interested in doing some music there, though, because, like, you know, there are a surprising number of people with some sort of musical background who are in medicine for some reason.
Yeah. You speak as one of them. Anyway.
Yeah, well, vaguely.
Would you like to take us off with the big question, Noah? The big old question, pardon me.
Yes, the big old question, which I definitely knew I was going to do and definitely didn't make up as we were recording this.
Yeah, not at all.
No. Maybe this is just because I've been studying medicine stuff all the time. But, what do you guys think is the definition of life? Like, what makes something, like, this is, you know, we can think, like, really deep into it too, but even just from a very, like, weird definitions and gray areas perspective, what makes something alive and what makes it, you know, not alive?
Okay, answer that. You asked, so you have to answer first.
Yeah, I know. I think one of the most interesting definitions of life that I've ever heard, which, Joshua, I feel like we, like, on one of our road trip conversations, we talked about this once.
Oh, is this the creating order from disorder thing?
Yeah, it was like, it's like negative areas of entropy or something, or negative areas of decrease in entropy, like steady decrease. Which is an interesting idea. Like, there's, you know, like, creating order whenever everything should be slowly becoming less ordered.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool thought. Just looking at it from a what we can see here on Earth perspective, I think this kind of standard biology definition of if it can, like, replicate on its own, that makes it alive, which is a little bit of a simplification, but if it can replicate on its own, it makes it alive.
Yeah.
I think that's nice, but you end up with these weird gray areas of, like, you know, like, what's this, like this virus that has almost everything, but it can't quite replicate on its own.
Yeah.
Like, people say that's not alive, but then, you know, a bacteria that, like, isn't, it has to live inside another cell to replicate. Is that alive? Because it still has all the machinery to do it, but it has to be in that particular environment.
Yeah. And also, like,
pretty much.
mitochondria, would you consider those to be alive in and of themselves?
The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Shut up, Andrew. Okay, I have to pause because
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the
oh
cell.
my gosh. Oh god. Anyway, so I was gonna say something. I lost the thought. Noah. Oh yes. Okay. So yeah, another weird gray area with that able to replicate on its own is then like, what about things that like sterile people, sterile humans? Are they not considered alive? Or like,
oh yeah, because they can't replicate on their own.
Yeah. Or like ligers cannot replicate on their own. So what happens with that?
Yeah, I think the line kind of has to be drawn between big things and small things. With that, like, obviously a liger is alive, and obviously a sterile human is alive, but we look at a virus and it's like the same thing, same sort of situation, and we say it's not.
You could look at it. You could think of it kind of as a species thing too.
Yeah.
Like even if one individual can't, then if the species itself has the ability to replicate.
Yeah.
But still, I mean that adds an interesting thought, because like with ligers, like you're talking about, that is kind of its own thing, and they are alive. But if they can't replicate,
yeah,
then that falls into that definition by a very broad sense, which is really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. Explain your negative entropy or whatever thing, because I've not heard that.
That's just like, so tell me if I'm saying this wrong. Entropy is like level of, order or disorder, right?
It is a measurement of disorder. So positive entropy means that it is becoming more disordered. Negative entropy means it is becoming more ordered.
And that's like a chemistry thing, right? Or thermodynamics?
Yeah, it's like a if we ended up with a general theory of everything that really worked, it would be in there, because it kind of fits in with chemistry, it fits in with physics. It's kind of it's a science thing.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. A science thing.
Yeah. But it's basically saying, the entire universe generally is going to work its way towards higher and higher entropy.
Yeah.
Towards more disorder?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the general way that things work. Like it's one of like the laws of physics or something, right?
It's one of the laws
Everything
of thermodynamics.
Thermodynamics. There we go. Man, I haven't taken physics in a while.
It's okay. I took it this year.
Yeah,
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I'm pretty sure it's the third law of thermodynamics. I've once heard the laws of thermodynamics saying, or rephrased as, you can't win, you can't stop playing, and you have to lose.
Whoa,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr.
That's
Hales.
cool.
Appreciate that. Anyway, so Noah, did you ever even give a definition? Your working definition of what is alive and what is not?
Oh man, I don't know. Oh, actually, I never described the entropy thing either.
Yeah.
Andrew, do you kind of get it though?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay, so if think about then think about you, like you eating a bunch of just like random ground up food or something that's not particularly ordered.
Tasty. And
the molecules in it can be very simple, but your body is putting them together into more complex proteins and carbohydrates and creating more order where there was less.
Okay, negative entropy, I get it now.
Yeah, which is an interesting kind of thought.
Wild.
Crazy.
Yeah. So if you want to take that down to the scale of like a virus, they are taking all of these things from the bacteria that they're inside, or the cell that they're inside, the human cell, and they are stitching them all together into new viruses that are more ordered forms than just the broken up molecules that they obtained from digesting and killing the
Or
bacteria.
if you want to think of it even more of like a, the virus not really doing things on its own, it's a packet containing these weird instructions and molecules that briefly switch the direction that entropy change goes. Like it's just the right set of molecules all stuck together that in very specific settings, like inside a bacteria or inside a mammalian cell or whatever, they take all these random pieces and they decrease the amount of entropy for a bit by making something more complex in the form of more viral particles.
Yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah,
I like that.
Really weird.
So is that your definition, Noah?
I don't know. Like this, that's the hard thing about this is like, I don't know if I have a really good definition. It's one of those things that's really hard because it feels like something that you have to be able to draw a line in the sand about. Like this is what's alive and this is what isn't. And maybe there's not really a good line in the sand. Like maybe, there's just kind of always going to be this gray area where like this thing is definitely not nearly as alive, but like kind of sort of is alive. And like this thing on the other end is like very alive. Like it, can replicate on its own, and it can, make decisions and think and all that. Like it's pretty hard to argue that is not alive.
So you say like it's more of a spectrum than a yes or no?
Yeah, I guess so. But like, even so, I feel like somewhere it's hard. That makes it even harder to think of a definition because it's like you're, like there is no line in the sand to be like, this is what's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just when you get to one extreme end of the spectrum, okay, we're here, we're on the alive side. And then when you get to the other side, you're like, okay, we're here, we're on the dead side.
Yeah,
or, the not alive side. But you don't know when you crossed over.
Yeah,
you can only know in the very absolute cases.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Andrew?
I feel like I am very much the least qualified to provide a definition. I don't know. When I think of is something alive, I always think of like a virus, because that's the classic example. I would say a virus is alive because it wants to replicate. I wouldn't say ability to replicate means it's alive. I would say wants to replicate is it's alive.
But how does it want to replicate?
Yeah, because you could just say that it's the random interactions between the proteins on the virus and the proteins on the outside of the cell that allow it to like latch on, get sucked in, and then it's just a game of chance. And it's not that it wants to, it's just that by the properties of those molecules, that is what tends to happen. And so because it tends to happen more than not, they replicate without any sort of initiative in the process.
Yeah, like you could take, a really strong acid and say that it wants to react with a strong base because it will, but there's no particular choice going on. It's just that it's happening, which is a way more extreme example. Like you could argue more that there is some sort of increased complexity going on with a virus than with just a simple acid and base, but same kind of idea, right? Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, more or less. I was more thinking like in the other direction. Like you could say that humans really have no initiative in our replication. It's just that the random interactions between all the crazy complex neural circuitry in our brains make it so that we are more inclined, I would say, or more likely to feel inclined to go out and seek out opportunities to replicate, to put it in really clinical terms, than not. And because people who don't have that urge won't go out and replicate, I'm just going to keep saying it until it gets creepy, they will not be proliferating throughout the population. And the people who do have that urge, that weird neural circuitry that makes them, that makes their brains kind of light up when they have the opportunity, then they will start to proliferate, and it's just a game of chance, you know? And so we are all just the products of this huge, long game of chance that is evolution, you know? And so even thinking about evolution, like, if you get down to it, like down to the very beginnings of life, evolution was just what was most likely to happen. So, like, the first protein that could replicate itself, that, quote unquote, evolved into more and more complex things, because the more complex things were able to do more stuff, and so it was more probable that they would continue replicating, because they could then, like, suck more raw materials into themselves. And so that made it more probable that they would proliferate throughout the primordial soup. And so you're just kind of left with, like, okay, like Noah, you were saying, we're kind of moving along the spectrum. And where are we going to get there?
Yeah, where is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, whenever you get up to, like, things that can think, like, in the very general sense of the word that we use, like you and I are thinking about this, there is kind of this synergistic effect of everything else. Like, there's no particular neuron or little biochemical pathway that's like, that makes complex thought. But altogether, it does make more than just all the reactions going on. It's like, you know, like, we are a whole bunch of chemical reactions going on all at once, all over. But altogether, that makes more than just a chemistry set. It makes, like, something that can experience things, which is really weird. Which is like going back to this question, is like a very extreme end of this. Like, okay, all these things together make something that can think and feel and experience, and also replicate. And so, like, that's very much alive. And then way back in the primordial soup, like you're talking about, that's kind of like a gray area of, is this thing alive yet, or is it not? Like, is it just kind of random reactions at this point?
Yeah. What you were saying about not being just a collection of chemical reactions in the brain, sometimes I think that if we could really comprehend the scale and incredible immensity and diversity of chemical reactions that are happening every microsecond in our brain, we might reconsider that. I think that is maybe just a failing of the human brain not being able to comprehend its own self that makes us think that we are so special in that way. That makes us think that there is an absolute end to the spectrum, and we are not just kind of still in the gray area, and further on there might be even more.
Oh no, I'd like, absolutely, there's more, like, we're not all the way along the spectrum either. We're just as much as, like, we're capable of understanding. But I do think that if we, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I could be wrong about this too, but
as if we couldn't.
I think,
yeah.
I think if we were able to understand everything to that immense detail, it wouldn't be so much that we would be like, we're just a bunch of reactions. It might be more like, this is, like, we're a bunch of reactions that all together have this synergistic effect to create something that, like, thinks and experiences, and also, like, this is how it actually happens. You know, like, we can, on a much more basic scale, you can look at really simple life and be like, okay, well, this thing these are chemical reactions. All together, it has this weird synergistic effect where this thing now like seeks out food, or like is able to break down things, and like it's more than just a bunch of individual reactions. Like that final product has more complexity and more ability than all those individual reactions do. But we understand it enough to be like, okay, here's this secondary, like more complex synergistic effect that is created by all of these individual things.
So if we could understand all of the individual components, all the chemical reactions, if we could see all of those, we could then see in their negative space the emergence of something like a conscience or free will or a soul or whatever you want to call it, or a synergistic effect. Continue with the clinical terms.
Yeah, and if you could really see, like, if we could somehow comprehend the massive complexity of all that and all the different interactions going on, then we could much better understand, like, where that's actually coming from. Because it's not like it isn't there, but it's, it would be we'd have a much better understanding of it than just like, okay, well, we know on one end, like, there's these reactions, and on the other end, like, I'm thinking about them, and somewhere in between, like, there's a whole lot of stuff that we don't know. Maybe.
Wow.
I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
I was kind of poo-pooing myself for giving such a lame answer about what I thought life was. And, like, now I'm totally like, oh yeah, it's a spectrum, duh. But I'm glad I said that because it led you guys to this insane philosophical tangent. I feel like I'm just a listener, and it's awesome because you guys are smart.
You're smart too, buddy.
I know, I'm just not at my full potential.
That's okay. None of us are. Well, thanks for this conversation. It has left me feeling strangely hopeful.
Me too.
Yeah. Good question, Noah. Good question.
Thanks. Glad that I just pulled that out of my keister at the last minute.
Yeah.
And that you guys are good conversationalists and that you can word things well.
Well, that's our cue to roll the credits. This podcast is created by the three of us, written by none of us, and edited and produced by me, Joshua. Hopefully it's also listened to and enjoyed by you, but no pressure. Join us next time as we unravel more of the world's big questions, or maybe just get tangled up in them. We'll see how things go when we get there. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas on how we could make this podcast better, please send us a message at littlemiddlebiggle@outlook.com. Love, thanks, and T-Rex hugs from all of us. We couldn't have done this without you. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I definitely let out a very silent toot while we were sitting here.